Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the Messengers in Our Home. Dear Kardec Radio listeners, welcome back to the Messengers in Our Home. Tonight we're going to talk about Chapter 48, Dread of Death. Hello, Mackenzie.
Hi, Francisca. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another chapter of the Messengers in Our Home.
So let us all tune in before we start reading the chapter and discussing about it. Dear Mother, Father God, Creator of the universe and of our yet small hearts, we are once again united in your name, grateful for this opportunity of learning together more about the laws that rule over life and death, and especially that explain to us that death per se doesn't exist, and life eternal is what awaits all of us. With our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you for the many blessings we receive every day. Opportunities to learn and to grow, to get up again after we fell, to continue on our journey towards you, and to feel your love around us in the good days and in the bad days. And so we ask you, dear God, please help us to strengthen our faith in you for our lives above anything else, so that we can grow, that we can make the most of this incarnation. And with your permission, we now would like to start our meeting. So be it. So here we are, Chapter 48. Enjoy.
Chapter 48, The Dread of Death. Aniseto's many explanations answered my natural questions. Nevertheless, there was still more to learn. Why were there so many discarnates here? Since they had already received spiritual assistance, couldn't they congregate on our plane in places that were just as spiritual? I respectfully asked him about this. Actually, Andre, he responded, most discarnates do receive invaluable instruction in our sphere of action. At the beginning of your new spirit experience, you yourself were not taken to our corporeal friend's environment for the guidance you needed. However, when they arrive here, a lot of individuals are possessed by an unhealthy longing for groups of their own kind. The same thing happens on other planes of evolution with animals when they feel a mortal longing for the herd. To help these discarnates adapt to their new habitat, the work of rescuing them is more effective when in close proximity to the magnetic energies of brothers and sisters who are still involved in the carnal circles. At times like these, this room serves as a large incubator of psychic energies for the work of acclimating certain spirit bodies to their new life. And nodding toward a large group of needy spirits, he continued, The brothers and sisters in the situation I'm referring to hear our voices and are indeed consoled by our aid, but human warmth is filled with magnetism of a more meaningful level for them. Upon contact with it, they experience the awakening of new energies. That is why our cooperative work in centers of this sort offers advantages that you, for now, could not imagine. Didn't you see the lazy, drowsy, and careless incarnates who came to receive benefits in this house? They themselves gave something. They gave magnetic warmth, beneficial, vital emanations to this home sanctuary's benefactors who manipulate elements of this nature and distribute them in valuable fluid combinations to enfeebled and maladjusted spirits. And smiling, he concluded, "Everything has some value, Andre. Our Father has created nothing in vain." When the meeting had ended with all-round benefits that I won't describe in detail, Aniceto assisted a physician who wished to avail himself of his generous assistance to his patients. "Very often," exclaimed this physician from Dona Isabel's group, as if offering information to Vicente and me, "we not only administer medicine to infirm bodies, but we also guide discarnates who, during the course of their illnesses, had been under our care." "Are there always a lot of them?" I asked. "The number is growing. There are occasions when we enjoy the cooperation of the patient's spirit friends or relatives, but in most cases we are forced to act by ourselves. Fortunately, we almost never lack dedicated and active helpers. There are fellow spirits who are devoted to caring for tubercular, blind, lame, leprous, disturbed, and dying individuals by themselves. They are our dedicated co-workers in all sorts of situations." We left the premises, and in a few minutes we stopped in front of a large building. Our colleague led us inside a spacious morgue where we were faced with an interesting scene. The body of a young woman, less than 30 years old, was laid out, icy cold and stiff, with a male spirit at her side, watching over her. I was astonished to see that the discarnate spirit was still attached to her remains. She seemed withdrawn into herself, harboring a strong feeling of fear. She shut her eyes deliberately, afraid of looking around her. "The process of her disengagement from her physiological ties has ended," exclaimed the attentive physician. "But for the last 6 hours, the poor thing has been overcome by a terrible feeling of dread." And pointing to the spirit gentleman next to her, the physician explained, "That is her fiancé. He has been waiting for her for a long time." We moved a bit closer and heard him say lovingly, "Cremilda, Cremilda, let's go. Leave your tattered garment behind. I did everything possible so that you wouldn't suffer anymore. Our little house is waiting for you. It's filled with love and light." But the young woman closed her eyes as if she didn't want to see him. It was obvious that her spirit body was completely detached from its physical vessel, but the poor thing remained stretched out, imitating the position of her corpse, and overcome with extreme terror. Aniceto seemed to understand everything in the blink of an eye, and made a subtle sign to the discarnate fellow, who, deeply troubled, approached him. "You must help her differently," Aniceto said resolutely. "I can see that the poor thing has not slept during her disengagement, and seems frightened due to her lack of spiritual preparation. It's not a good idea for you to show yourself to her right now. In spite of the love you feel for her, she cannot see you again without becoming terribly upset at this moment in which her mind is floating about aimlessly. Yes, he responded sadly. I've been calling her for 6 hours non-stop, and I too have noticed her dread. Aniceto replied, counseling him. A lack of religious preparation, my brother. She will sleep, however, and as soon as she has been able to rest a little, we will deliver her into your care. For now, it's better to keep some distance. In accompanying the physician who had helped the young woman spiritually during her final days, Aniceto approached the newly discarnate, speaking in a fatherly manner. Cremilda, let's get you some new treatment. Hearing him, the girl opened her terrified eyes and exclaimed,
Oh, doctor, thank God! What a terrible nightmare! I felt as if I were in the kingdom of the dead, listening to my long-deceased fiancé calling me to eternity.
There is no death, my daughter, refuted Aniceto lovingly. Believe in life eternal, profound, victorious life.
Are you a new doctor?
She asked, comforted. Yes, I have been called to give you some magnetic-based treatments. It is essential that you sleep and rest.
That's for sure,
she replied.
I'm very tired and I need to rest.
In a low voice, our instructor asked us to help in an inner attitude of prayer, and after remaining silent for a few seconds, he administered energizing passes to her. The young woman fell asleep almost immediately. Aniceto pulled her away from her remains with the loving care of a father, and calling her grateful fiancé, gently passed her to him. Now you can show her the way, my brother. The young man thanked him with tears of joy, and I saw him voletate with his face glowing, carrying with him the sweet burden of his love. Our mentor made an expressive gesture and said, because of the natural goodness of her heart and deliberate cultivation of virtue, she will need no purgatorial trials. It's a pity, though, that her mind had no preparation through religious education. Soon she will be adapted to her new life. The good ones don't encounter insurmountable obstacles. And perhaps, desiring to consolidate and synthesize the lesson, he concluded, as you can see, the concept of death is useless to truly alleviate, heal, or edify. What is needed is to spread the idea of life victorious. Moreover, the gospel has already taught us for centuries that God is not the God of the dead, but the Father of creatures who live forever. And tonight we're talking about chapter 48, the dread of death. Well, you already heard the reading of the chapter, and hopefully you have already read the chapter. It's been a while since the last time I reminded you guys of this, but it is very, very interesting if you can have the book with you while we are reading, while we are trying to study here. Of course, we understand that many of you are in the cars. You know, you can't have the book with you at the moment we are reading. But if you really want to give us feedback, for example, or if you really want to go in deep details about these teachings of this book and about on the other books that we already studied and that we will keep studying here, it is interesting if you have the book with you, so you can, highlight some parts, ask questions on the sides of the book, and then you write some notes so that you can really get into the teaching and maybe really be able to grasp what Andre is teaching us, or what Aniceto is teaching us, or any of these spirits that sometimes we don't even know their names, but they are showing us what they do, how they do it, how they help others. So if we are really interested in learning how to live better, not only when we discarnate, but even here, right? And that's one of the big teachings of this chapter that we are starting to read today. But once again, before we get to that, if you can have the book, it's great. You can either buy a physical copy of the book. If you can't find it at your local a bookstore or the bookstore of the Spiritist Center around you, you can go to Amazon.com and buy the physical book. And if you have a Kindle, if you have a Nook, if you have an e-reader of any sort, you can also find the e-book of this book and of many other Spiritist books that are around. And they are very as day passes, right, as year passes, we're having more and more options available in English. And basically, the whole collection of this series by André Luiz through Chico Xavier is almost all the books are already available for purchase, either in ebook format or in the physical book format. So we highly recommend here at our program and on Kardec Radio that you get the book. And if you have one already, and you find this interesting, give this book to somebody else, as a gift, as a birthday gift, as a, don't need to be of any special occasion, the special occasion of being a friend of the other person, so that you can share the word, spread the word of this knowledge, that it is very, very important, as we will see here specifically in this chapter. And that's why I'm spending these minutes here just trying to make us understand about the idea of this preparation that we always need to have before we go back to the real life, or to the spiritual life that we know we all have. So once again, chapter 48, the dread of death. And if you've been following us for the past few weeks, what's happening is Andre is in this meeting at Dona Isabel's house, and we just finished the meeting, right? Aniceto was explaining to Andre and to Vicente what was going on some situations, right? We remember that they were observing how the spirits were working when the meeting was going on, what was happening, how were the discarnate ones, using that moment to learn, or to some of them to sleep, to take a quick nap. And we had some explanations about it. And by the end of the chapter, we understood, and Aniceto told us, and that's very, very important for us to remember, that, and I'm going to quote from the last paragraph of the last chapter, he said to us, "Someday, Andre," and of course he's speaking to us here, "Jesus will help you understand that it is better to serve than to be served, more blessed to give than to receive." And that's basically one of the main tenets of the Christian teachings, right? It is better to serve than to be served, and it is better to give than to receive. We all know that. Hopefully, we are already practicing it, because unfortunately, knowing is one thing, practicing what we know is something completely different. As the old saying goes, "Do as I say, do not do what I do." As Christians, we should really think about, if we are reading, if we are trying to learn, let's put it into practice. But when we start chapter 48, Andre tells us that, of course, that we all have a lot of explanations. Right now, we are on chapter 48 of this second book. Imagine, there are 16 books on this series, and we are on we still didn't even finish the second book. And how many teachings have we already learned from Clarencio in No Solar, from Aniceto, from Andre himself, from a lot of different spirits, Lysias and Donna Isabel and Isidoro. So many names, so many spirits trying to show us what to do. And there's still a lot to learn. And that's what that's how Andre starts this chapter when he says, nevertheless, there was still more to learn. And then he asks, right, why there were so many discarnates there? Well, let's remember, this is a physical meeting, right? It's a meeting at a place, at a physical place, at Donna Isabel's house. So Andre asks himself, couldn't these spirits congregate or be together on our plane, on the spiritual plane, in places that were just as spiritual? I mean, we discarnated, right? These spirits are discarnate. Why don't they go, let's say, to No Solar and be in No Solar at all times and having help from the discarnate spirits? And then he asks this question to Aniceto. Of course, Aniceto would answer to him. And that's what he says. He says, well, Andre, just like you yourself, right? When you discarnated, you've never been to a place like this, after not even only now you're coming to a place like this. Well, of course, he doesn't say this with these words, but you were helped in No Solar. You stayed at the spiritual colony, and then you were helped there. You've never been here. But some spirits need differently, right? So we all need different things because of our different understanding, because of our different needs, right? Because of how we behave, because of how we conducted ourselves. So it is different for every spirit. So some people, some of these spirits, when they arrive at the spiritual plane, they have this longing for groups of their own kind. And then he makes this comparison, right, with the animal side, right, with the herds of animals, when he says that the same thing happens on other planes of evolution with animals when they feel a mortal longing for the herd. So they need the herd. And the question for us is why, right? Do we, some of us, when we discarnate, we need the group of incarnate spirits still? And the answer is, like we were saying in the beginning, in introduction here, it's because of how we behave when we are incarnates. But let's go and we will get back to this later on. So he says, for us, the discarnate ones, and Aniceto is saying, for us, the discarnate ones, to help these spirits who really need this unhealthy longing, because it is something different if you have a healthy longing for this, like, I miss my parents, and I miss my wife, or I miss my daughter, I miss my son. This is a natural feeling. We all miss people that already discarnated or that are far away from us. We all have these healthy longings, right? For, if we can call, we call. If we receive a call from time to time, when we see a picture and then we remember the person, we have that feeling. And that's not unhealthy. The unhealthy part is when you basically tell yourself that you can't live without that person. And then that feeling, that unhealthy feeling, brings you down, and brings us down. And a lot of our energies will go down the drains of ourselves because we won't be able to focus on something else, and all this energy will be wasted on these types of thoughts, and we will lose this energy to other things. So what Aniceto is telling us here is that these spirits who have these unhealthy longings, for them to recover quickly, for them not to lose a lot of their energy, they need the magnetic energies from the bodies of people who are incarnated. And that's why they need to come to these physical places so that they can feel, they can be, let's say, if we can use this word, recharged by the energies that the body, that our bodies, when we are incarnated, they generate. And that's basically the same idea of the passes, right? And they will talk a little bit again in this chapter about the passes, or they will say that they will apply passes. In this case, in this specific case, it's when they're talking about the discarnate woman. So it's going to be a discarnate spirit applying passes to another discarnate spirit. But passes is that transfusion or transmission of energies from one person to another, be it an incarnate to an incarnate or discarnate to discarnate and vice versa, or the incarnates and the discarnates together. So what's happening is that some of these spirits who have these unhealthy longings, for them to really get re-energized, get leveled, energetically speaking, they will need to be close to incarnate spirits, to us in certain types of meetings. And then when they are helped by these energies, they can feel better and then they can move on. It is something like a person who had, let's say, just had a surgery, right? And then, well, the person is ready to go. The person already had the surgery, but before moving to her place, before moving back to his house, the person will need to rest for a while, right? To recover some energy. And how will the person do it? With different types of food, lighter food, but it will need to be something that's physical, right? It will need to be like a soup or like a juice or something very light, and then gradually they will readapt to the level that they need to be. And then when they are ready, they have their, let's say the blood blood work came and it's okay again. The person will be able to go back to her home, to her house, to his house. And this adaptation between one state to the other is always, or to some people, is necessary. There are different types of surgery. Some of them, as soon as you're done, you can go back home. Some of them, you have to stay a little while. Some of them, you have to stay even longer before you can get back home. So for each individual, for each spirit, will be different. So in this case, and once again, depending on how we live, this will be the determinant of how much time and what will I need to really be adapted to the new spirit, to the new life, right? To the new level of life that I'm going to be. And in this chapter, we have this. We're going to have this example of a person who died. She was afraid, and here comes the title of the chapter. And she was afraid of the death. She was afraid of the dead as well. And she didn't know what to do. And the spirit who was trying to help her couldn't do much until Aniceto comes, and then he helps her. But let's leave this story for the end of the chapter. So every single spirit is different, and depending on how we lived, that's what will determine how we will keep living once we leave our material bodies on this side, so that we can go living with our spiritual body. So when Aniceto says, he says, well, the brothers and sisters in this situation I'm referring to hear our voices and are indeed consoled by our aid. So the spirits, right, who are there and are being helped and can hear what Aniceto is saying, they are indeed being consoled, right? They can understand what we are saying, but this the warmth, right? The gathering of people, it fills the air, fills the environment with this energy that comes from the connection between the material body and the will of the people there. And so this magnetic aid will help these people. And if you remember it well, last week when we were discussing chapter 47, remember that we talked a little about people who were at the Spiritist Center and they were kind of sleepy, and Aniceto was telling us, hey, just pay attention to how you're doing, and try not to sleep and see what's going on. The spirits were there trying to wake those people up, but we have we need to change. We need to, if I'm sleepy, let's stand up so that I don't fall asleep, that I pay attention as a form of respect to those who are really trying and striving to do their best to teach us and to pass on the gospel and the message, right? But what is interesting on what Aniceto is now saying is that, okay, but let's say there are people sleeping. So if it's me, I need to be aware of it. But if there are other spirits, other people who are drowsy or lazy or careless, they are there at the meeting. Look, let's not judge them, because even those, they have their part in the job. They have their part in what's going on. Once again, it's not for us to take this and say, oh, if even the lazy, the drowsy, and the careless incarnates are useful at the meeting, so I'm going to be one of the lazy, the drowsy, and the careless. No. Remember, if there are those, that is fine. We will not judge. But if it's us and we already woke up for the reality, it's our responsibility, right? It's one of those things. Oh, now I see that person, doing this thing that's wrong. Nobody caught the person doing it, so I'm going to do it as well. No, you already know it's wrong. You already know it's not the best thing to do. You already know it's not the right thing to do, so you will not do it. Let the others do it. It's their lives. It's not our lives. Here's the same thing. We already know it's not healthy for us to be lazy, to sleep during and not respectful as well, to sleep during what another person is trying to teach us or talk to us. But if there are, what Aniceto is saying here is they give something to the meeting as well. The warmth that they give to the environment, and by warmth here is not just the physical warmth, but as well the magnetic warmth, right? The energies, the physical energies that they can spare to help the spirits who are the discarnate spirits who are at the Spiritist Center, so that the good spirits like Aniceto and like the mentors and the helpers, the messengers in our centers, they can use those energies to help the spirits who are more in need of them than what we are in need of them at that specific moment. So it is interesting because when Aniceto concludes, he says, everything has some value, Andre. Our Father has created nothing in vain. So it is interesting that even in situations like this, when we have people who are careless, who are drowsy, who are lazy, who are not doing the best that they can, even in those moments, these people can be of help to others, right? So let's not judge. Let's try to help them to be awakened so that they can help not only with the magnetic energy, but also to help physically by doing something, by respecting the environment where they are. But if we can't, if they don't change, but they still come and they're still there, let's always remember that God has created nothing in vain, and everything has some value. So it is interesting that we can see this situation in two different points of view, and trying to understand both of them and trying to use both of them the best we can in our lives, by not judging others and by trying and putting the effort to do the best that we can when we are working. So, and then by this, Andres says that, well, this was basically the end of everything, of the meeting, and he says that he's not going to describe everything in detail. Remember, this is a week, this whole book is a week in Andre Luiz's lives. So it's already chapter 48, and he says that I'm not going to describe in detail. Imagine if he were to describe in detail how long, how many chapters this book would have and how much. So that's why he basically tells us in the beginning of the chapter, hey, there's still more to learn. So if he says that he's not going to describe in detail, there's way more to learn that he doesn't mention here. So they move on. They find this spirit physician that were there at the meeting, and he comes to talk to Aniceto. Aniceto will help him with something that he needs, and then he says that they not only administer some medicine to bodies, to physical bodies, but they also guide incarnates, right? When they are ill, during the course of their illness, had been under our care. So let's imagine a person was being helped at the Spiritist Center, was very sick, and then the person dies, the person discarnates, right? These spirits who were trying to help, were helping that incarnate person, will keep, if they are allowed to, if they don't have too many things to do, they will keep helping that spirit once the spirit discarnates. And Andre asks, are there always a lot of them? And the spirit says, yeah, the number is growing. Sometimes we help ourselves, but we cannot do everything. So we have some good friends who are, let's say, know more about, let's say, tuberculosis, know more about people who are blind, who are lame, who have leper, and who are disturbed, and these diseases here were more common at the time. Today we could add any disease that is popular. I mean, not popular, but is happening more around the world, like depression, like Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth. So there are spirits who know more about these diseases, so they will help more these spirits who have those specific types of diseases. But not only medical staff, right? We can have groups of spirits who are relatives to those who are discarnates, and we have to remember that we are all guided. Each and every one of us always has a spirit who is together with us, trying to help us, trying to guide us, trying to inspire us to keep going, to follow what we previously arranged before we incarnated. So they are always together with us, trying to help us understand, trying to help us stay on track. And naturally, once we discarnate, we will meet this spirit again, and we have the cooperation. The physician, the spiritist physician, the spirit physician here is telling Andre that they have the help of these kinds of spirits, friends or relatives. But unfortunately, most of the times they have to act by themselves. Why? Because sometimes, if I have a friend, I have a good friend, for example, but I'm in a situation that the friend cannot help. Let's say I have a problem, I don't know, with my car, but my friend doesn't know anything about cars. So what can the friend do? The most the friend can do is encourage me to go look for a person or try to help me find a person to help me. But the friend will not be able to help me with his own hands doing some stuff to help. So that's why this spirit is telling us this. But what is interesting about this talk about from this spirit is that he finalizes his part here by saying that these spirits, right, who are specialists, we could call it, right, that know about, let's say, a person who is blind, or will know how to deal better with a person that is blind. He says, this spirit says, they are our dedicated co-workers in all sorts of situations. He is talking here about the discarnate spirits. So I want to make a brief reflection on what he said here. Let's imagine that I am a very lazy person. Let's imagine, it's not hard to imagine that because it's not far away from the truth. But let's imagine that I am a very, very lazy person, right? I don't like to help anybody. I don't like to do anything. I like to stay in bed. I like to, just take my time to do whatever it needs to be done. I'm always late to places and so on and so forth. What do you think will happen once I discarnate? Will I be able to right away, even if it's like a month or 2 months in after I discarnate, will I be able to be a dedicated co-worker for all sorts of situations? I don't think I will. Because it's not because I discarnated that I will change from one state to another and be a different spirit. I will still be what I am right now. Maybe I will remember something else. Maybe I will remember that I need to do something. But if I've been practicing for 10, 20, 30 years, 50 years, 60 years, I've been practicing being lazy, what will it take for me to stop practicing being lazy and really be a dedicated coworker for all sorts of situations? That's why I think that this chapter is really about how we behave when we are incarnate. Depending on what we do here is what we will be once we discarnate. Why? It's just a matter of continuing what I am doing, right? So if I'm expecting to be a better person just because I died or just because I decided to start going to a church, once I die, well, will I be a better person? Not necessarily. What will happen is, since I've been going to the church, since I've been going to the Spiritist Center, my longing will be to keep going to the Spiritist Center when I discarnate, and not to practice what I was reading or living there or listening there. Because it's what I do. It's not just what I think. It's part of practicing what I am living, right? While I am living. So all these dedicated co-workers, maybe they learned to be more dedicated when they discarnated. But we need to start learning to be a dedicated worker or a co-worker when we are incarnate. So then when I move on, I will be able to pick up much, much faster than if I'm not doing anything, right? So it is up to us. It is really up to us what we decide to do when we are here incarnated. So just as a quick example, it is as if a student, right, within school knows that at the end of the month there will be an exam, right? And the person just doesn't study. And then when it's the day of let's say the eve of the exam, the person decides to read the whole chapter or the whole book for the exam on the next day. Well, the person will remember some things, but the knowledge will not sink in. It will be just for that specific moment. And maybe there will be no time to get ready for the exam if we leave it for the last minute. So here is the same thing. So I imagine that when they were talking here, coming back to the book, when they were talking about this, they were walking, right? They were going to a different place, and we know that they're going to this morgue where they're going to find this woman that we just talked a few minutes ago. So they arrive at this spacious morgue, and then they see this young woman that's not younger than 30 years old, so she's not even 30 years old. She is dead. She has discarnated. The body is there, icy cold and stiff, and then there's this woman, there's this man at her side, a male spirit. It's the person is also discarnated. What is interesting that Andre describes here is that he can see the body, the physical body, and he also sees the spirit of that body, right? That were when that spirit was incarnated, the woman in spirit, the spiritual body is also there, connected to that body, but not connected as in living, but it is as if you can see one body inside another body. Maybe that's my imagination. He doesn't describe it that way, but he sees, and he says that he was astonished to see that the discarnate spirit was still attached to her remains. So the woman it is as if she is laying down inside her own physical body, and this is we've seen this, which is very interesting because once again, this book was written in the 1940s, and maybe a lot of people had never seen movies when they read these books, and the movies at the time were not, let's say, so highly technologically advanced. These days, how many of these movies we see where we can see a spirit, right, walking past through doors and laying down on another body. Let's imagine, of course, it's not how it happens, but let's imagine Ghost, right? The movie Ghost of a few years ago. We see that the spirit comes and gets close to the medium there, Oda Mae Brown, and then he just like quote unquote here, like again, this is not how we see happening in Spiritism, but it's a good way to represent visually, right? The spirit comes and enters the body of the medium, and then takes control of that body. So, and what Andre is describing here is like this magical, quote unquote, here scene in a movie theater or in a movies. If we see these new movies with all these digital effects and so on, so this spirit was there, connected to the body, but not alive, not being able to be alive anymore. And she was looking around her, afraid. The other way around. She had her eyes closed, and because she was so afraid of seeing stuff that she closed her eyes, and she didn't want to see what was on her side. And we know that this spirit has been dead for a while because of the icy cold and stiffness of the body. But the physician, the spirit physician, says that she already died, and he says this by saying, quote, "The process of her disengagement from her physiological ties has ended. But for the last 6 hours, the poor thing has been overcome by a terrible feeling of dread." So she is terrified by something. She is completely terrified. And this physiological ties, there's this connection that needs to have between the spirit and the body so that we are still alive. And that's this connection that got disconnected. And so she is dead already, or the body is dead. There's no physical connection anymore. The physical connection that gives, let's say, the power from the spirit for the body to keep going. This connection has been severed. It's done. So it's the physiological type. She is dead, but she is still trying to hang on to that body because she's afraid. She's terrified. And then he points out to us and to Andre, to the spirit that was by her side, that is by her side, the male spirit, and he says, well, that is her fiance, right? He's been waiting for her for a long time. And then we hear him speaking her name, Cremilda. Let's go. Leave your tattered garment behind. Garment naturally is a clothing piece, but of course that he is talking about her body. He is talking to her, say, hey, Cremilda, leave your body behind. Leave this old body that doesn't work anymore. Let's go. Our little house is waiting for you. It's filled with love and light. See, so his feeling is a feeling of love. His feeling is the feeling of, I've been waiting for you. Let's go with me. But she keeps her eyes closed, and she didn't want to see him. It was, Andre describes again, it's obvious that she has died already, but she was still laying down, right, imitating the position of her corpse, and overcome with extreme terror. So what happens in that situation? What do we do, right? What is our what should be our behavior? And then Aniceto comes to help us once again. He doesn't say how to do it. He just goes and he does it, right? Just like the ones who have knowledge and who are sage do. They don't just talk, they go and do it. So what he does is he goes close to that spirit, the male spirit who is there, and says, look, my friend, I know that you want to help. I feel your love for her. But if what you're doing is not working, you must help her differently. And maybe that's something that we should stop and think about, right? If we are trying to do something, and that's something we are trying to do, that we are doing, is not working for the purpose that we are trying to achieve, and if we have tried for a long time and nothing really changes, we need to do something different, right? We need to try to twitch it a little bit, to switch, to look for a different approach. That's what Aniceto is inviting us to think here. Look, I know that it's out of love. I know that you really, really want to help her. It's not something based on selfishness. It's not something based on, just because it's my wish. No, it's out of love. I know that you want to help, but you must do it differently. You can see that, and he says that he can see, right, that she couldn't sleep. And she is frightened because of her lack of spiritual preparation. So it is not a good idea for you to show yourself to her right now. Imagine, it's one of those things, you're a spiritist, you know that people die, you know that we survive, you know that there are spirits around, but we keep saying, but I don't want to see a spirit. I don't want to see a spirit. I don't want to hear a spirit. I don't want to communicate with them, right? So it's, if we are like this sometimes, imagine a person that had not have the spiritual preparation for this, had the fear of death, for example, like we said in the beginning of the chapter, that doesn't want to believe it, doesn't want to see it, doesn't want to think about it. So if you, for some reason, just start hearing the voice of a person who you know already died, of course we're going to be terrified, right? Because we didn't have the spiritual preparation. And I'm not even saying that maybe you're afraid when we are incarnated, and I don't want to hear when we are incarnated, but you are already discarnated. right? We already died, right? We already, in this case here, right? This girl, she already died. She's already discarnated, but she still has the same kind of fear as if she were incarnated. So that's the lack of spiritual preparation. So what Aniceto is telling us, and I'll keep going back, and I'm going back to the main topic of this chapter, which is how are we preparing ourselves to die, right? What is my preparation? How am I behaving in my life so that when I discarnate, will I be ready? What will happen to me once I die? What have I been doing with my own life for when I die? And of course, these are not Aniceto's words; these are my words. But you've been doing this, Aniceto says, and despite of your love for her, she didn't have this preparation, so she cannot handle it right away. And the man says, yeah, I've been calling her for 6 hours, but I noticed that she is so terrified. What can I do? What can I do? And then he says, once again, a lack of religious preparation. That's why she fears this situation so much. So what we will do is she will sleep, she will get some rest, and then once she rests for a while, you will be able to help her in a different way. But for now, let's try to do it different. Let's keep some distance. Let's keep some distance and see what we can do. So Aniceto goes close to her, and the physician who was helping her goes close to her again, and Aniceto talks to her like a father is talking to a daughter. And he says, Cremilda, let's get you some new treatment. When he speaks to her, she opens her eyes and exclaims, oh, doctor, thank God. What a terrible nightmare. I felt as if I were in the kingdom of the dead, listening to my long-deceased fiancé calling me to eternity. I felt as if I were in the kingdom of the dead. See what we were talking about? It is that feeling of lack of preparation, as if you were caught by surprise. Naturally, there can be certain types of death that we're going to be caught by surprise, right? Let's say something out of the ordinary happens, and then we die all of a sudden, and we were not expecting. Naturally, it can be so mind-boggling that when we notice that we didn't die, we will keep living for a while as if we had not died. And we didn't die, right? But we're not going to be in a physical world anymore. We're not going to be in a material world anymore. So it may take a while for us to awaken. But in this case here is different, right? She probably was going through suffering. She was probably going through certain types of things, but she still thinks that she's alive. I mean, that she is incarnated. What Aniceto does is that he doesn't tell her differently, at least not straightforwardly. She doesn't say that she died, right? What he says that she didn't die, but we understand what he wants to say, right? He says, and this is a very beautiful quote from this chapter. He says, "There is no death, my daughter. Believe in life eternal, profound, victorious life." So he's saying, hey, life goes on. Even if you die, you don't die. But of course that he doesn't want to upset her at that moment, so he tells her what she needs to hear at that specific moment so that she can improve, right? So we don't need to throw the truth in the face of the person. You can tell the truth, but using certain words that will not make the person become afraid, right? Or reject right up front what you're saying. And he is saying the truth here, but he's saying in a way that she will be able to keep the conversation going so that she can accept what will come next. And she asks, right, comforted, "Are you a new doctor?" "Yeah, I came here to help you. No, it's essential that you sleep and rest." And then she agrees. "Yeah, I'm very tired. I need to rest." So he says, "Well, I will give you a different type of treatment, magnetic-based treatments, which is the passes that we just talked about a few minutes ago." And she agrees, and Aniceto and the spirits around, Vicente, Andre, and the spirit physician that's there, are helping her with their prayers, and while Aniceto gives her the energizing passes. So then she sleeps. Now when she wakes up, she will be in a completely different situation because she will be able to rest, and she will have, as she is having right now, help from good spirits, just like Aniceto, like this spirit physician, and Andre and Vicente, and where she's going to be taken to a different place. There will be different spirits helping her. But it is interesting that she is in this situation, and we know by the end of the chapter here that she is a good woman. She is a good person. It's just that she didn't have the preparation. So it is as if we think, "Oh, she is such a good person," or "He is such a good person." Yeah, but if he's trying to bake a cake and he never studied, he never used an oven, how will he be able to do it just because he's a good person? So one thing is necessarily nothing to do with the other. You can be a good person and not know how to do some things, right? Have never learned how to deal with certain situations. One thing has nothing to do with it. But being a good person allows me to have more people that will look at me and say, "Hey, that person is going through a hard time. Let's go and really help the person." And if I'm a good person, I will be open arms, right? I will be open armed to receive the help of other people. And that's basically what's going on here, right? She is a good person. Unfortunately, she didn't have the spiritual preparation or the religious preparation for death, and then she is going through this hard time of a few hours. But everything will be solved, and Aniceto is helping, and lots of other spirits are helping. When he does that, he gives the woman to her fiance, and then he says, "Now you can show her the way, my brother. So now she's yours to take. Please take good care of her. She will be in good hands from here on." The young man just cries out of joy, and he goes carrying her with his face glowing, and this, what Andre says, is carrying with him the sweet burden of his love, right? It's maybe a burden, physical burden, but once and when we really love someone, the burden is not a burden anymore. Is a sweet, sweet burden. So Andre describes the rest of the scene as if Aniceto is using that situation to teach us once again what should be our behavior when incarnated, once we really start thinking about the spiritual life. And I'm going to read, because this is a great ending of the chapter. It's one of the greatest endings of a chapter in this book, at least for me. He says, "Because of the natural goodness of her heart and deliberate cultivation of virtue, she will need no purgatorial trials. It's a pity, though, that her mind had no preparation through religious education. Soon she will be adapted to her new life. The good ones don't encounter insurmountable obstacles." The good ones. Hopefully we are striving to be in that category, right? We will be finding obstacles. That is true. We find obstacles everywhere, every time, but they are not insurmountable. We can go through them with the help of good friends who are always trying to help us. We will just need to open our eyes, look around, do our part, and the sky, the heavens, will come to help us go across the obstacles. So if we are really, really striving and doing our best to help others and help ourselves, we will be somewhat in her situation of having a good help once we discarnate. And since we are here really having this conversation about preparing to death, we will not be in this situation that she is, hopefully, right? And then to consolidate and synthesize the lesson, Aniceto comes and concludes with, like I said, one of the best endings. Just like last chapters, I love last chapter's ending as well, but one of the best endings here. As you can see, and this is for us, as you can see, the concept of death is useless to truly alleviate, heal, or edify. What is needed is to spread the idea of life victorious. Moreover, the gospel has already taught us for centuries that God is not the God of the dead, but the Father of creatures who live forever. We live forever. We were created at one point, but we live forever. So the concept of death doesn't alleviate, heal, or edify. It's just that moment that causes us that sensation of, hey, I don't want to die, because it is necessary for us to not want to die so that we live more here. We use this time with care so that we can grow, so that we can do our part in the job of co-creating this universe. But for us to really be consoled, for us to really be healed, for us to really be edified, what we need to do is to really have the idea of life victorious. Life is what is important for us. God gave us life. We are now incarnated, but we are all living creatures, independently if we are in our bodies or outside of our bodies. But this is not all. The gospel, he says, already taught us for centuries, it's been 2,000 years at least, right, that God is not the God of the dead. It's not about death. No. God is the Father, right? He replaces here the word so that we can feel it. Because sometimes we say God, and unfortunately we have that distance with the word God. The word Father is not to replace the word God for a male word. No, it can be used mother. It's just because of how we use it, right? How Jesus used the word. It's Father is the one that takes care of us. It's that personal connection. So God is not that distant creature. No, God is the Father of us, is our Father, is the Father of creatures, any type of creature who live forever. And we are creatures who live forever. We will one day discarnate, but we will keep on living. So let's live the best way we can. Let's do the best. Let's think about the others. Let's think about God. And let's think about ourselves. Not necessarily in this order. So we can think about ourselves. We should think about others. And we definitely need to think about God. Think about the Father of creatures who live forever. And hopefully we will live forever. But let's pray that we live at least one more week so that we are here together once again next week, next Wednesday, to study again one more chapter of this great book, The Messengers. So until next week, have a great time, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio. broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.